As deconverted man. Oh, good. This again. Oh, good. It's Frank. Frank doesn't know anything. Well, this guy isn't Frank, but Frank's gonna be on the screen. There he is on the right side there. Frank doesn't understand words, and so here we go. And I've got a handy dandy diagram flow chart to go along with this video that I'm going to show you. So just this is going to be stupid, but you know, here we go.
Frank, let me open up with the question that I know you're well prepared to answer. So Frank, why don't you have enough faith to be an atheist?
Well, because there's a lot of evidence that God exists, and we're using this word faith the way the atheists use it, not the way.
All right. All right. So here we go. Okay, let's just get on the screen here. The little chart that I've got for you here. Okay. So is faith good or bad? Okay, if it's good, then you want more of it, and if it's bad, then you want less of it. That seems to be pretty straightforward. But this little yellow line here, that's Frank's tangent right there, okay? So Frank's going on this little tangent, and he's going to go ahead and equivocate faith to be equaling no evidence. Apparently, this is the atheist definition of faith, at least the first one. And then, of course, it's still going to be that if it's good, then you want more, and if it's bad, then you want less. So, if it's bad to have no evidence, then you want less no evidence, which means you want evidence. And then if it's good, then you don't want evidence, right? It's still, even though you equivocate here, the question remains, is faith good or bad? Now, he then goes off on another little tangent and then says atheists don't have evidence, but Christians do, and then he fails to provide any evidence. And so let's show him doing that so that I'm not lying about it. All right.
Christians use it. Faith to the atheist means if you don't have any evidence, you just have faith. And I think atheists have very little evidence that their materialistic worldview is true. And there's a lot of evidence that the Christian worldview is true. Now, the true definition of faith is trusting in what you have good reason to believe.
All right. As you heard, no evidence is offered. He just says that he thinks that that's the case, but he doesn't, say, here's the evidence we've got. It's just, I think that it's the case. All right. Let's just go back to the flow chart here. So he again equivocates on what faith means. Apparently, faith is actually trusting in what you have good reason to believe. So that's the second definition of faith that apparently atheists have. He's then going to go ahead and repeat his earlier assertion. He's just going to rephrase it, but he's going to basically say the same thing over again, where atheists don't have evidence, but Christians do, and then he's not going to provide any evidence again. So let's go back and listen to him do that. Yeah. Also, Happy New Year, 2022. It's a weird date. Nobody said the world was going to end this time. Kind of disappointed.
Trusting in what you have good reason to believe. And so I think there's a lot of evidence that Christianity is true. So it's easy to trust in the fact that God exists and Jesus rose from the dead and Christianity is true.
So when you use the phrase that it requires faith to be an atheist, I've seen several of your debates with Christopher Hitchens and so forth. They typically bristle at this comment, say atheism doesn't require faith, it just requires reason. And I love how you respond to this. So how do you respond when people say it does not require faith to be an atheist?
Well, using again the definition of faith that they use, that if you don't have reason, you have faith.
All right. so let's go back to the flow chart here so that we can keep along, because it's, it's kind of confusing since he keeps changing what we mean by faith, apparently. So he's gone off on this third definition. Or wait, maybe he's on the second one. You know what? I don't even know anymore. I think we're on 2. All right, anyway, so he's on this one, right? Yeah, that's the one he's on. All right, we're not there yet. So he's so confusing, even I'm confused, even with my flow chart. All right.
I think the atheists have to have a lot of faith because there's very little reason to believe that atheism is true. And they'll say, well, atheism isn't really a worldview. And I say, no.
All right. Yeah. All right. I was right. So yeah, he went back. He equivocated again with what the word faith means. And apparently, so we have 3 different definitions of faith. Let me get that on the screen here. Why can't I do more than one screen at a time? Okay, so we have a third definition of what faith means, apparently. And then, you don't have reason. Anyways, he repeats again his assertion that atheists don't have evidence, but Christians do. He fails to provide any evidence. And then he goes off on a tangent after he repeated that assertion again. And then he says atheism's a worldview or not. And then he strawmans the atheist and he appeals the consequence while doing so. And so there's your full flow chart here. So as you can see, we start with faith being good or bad. Of course, I guess it has to be bad because apparently atheists have it. But he's not really using the definition of faith that Christians use. He's using this definition of faith that atheists use, even though he's actually using this definition that's in number 2 of what atheists use. And he's actually using definition 3 of faith. And then, of course, you have to repeat this idea that, that we don't have evidence, but they do at least 2 to 3 times. Well, you said it once, so you say it again. So it's repeated twice because the first time doesn't. I guess that's not counted as repeating means saying the same thing over and over again. Repeating means saying the same thing over and over again. Repeating means saying the same thing over and over again. Okay, anyways, after you repeat it the second time, then you go on to your tangent here, which he's about to do. But anyways, yeah, no matter what the definition of faith is, it's still the question of if it's good or bad, right? And he's saying it's bad, but under his definition of what faith is, which is different from many of these definitions of faith, then according to that definition of what faith is, it's good to have faith. And then so it's good. So the Christian version of faith is good, but then the atheist version of faith is bad. And then that's how that works. All right. Okay, so let's go back to the video and listen to him do all the things that he said he was going to do.
No, it is a worldview. You believe, for example, that this is the view of most atheists today, that everything's made of molecules, that we're just molecular machines, that we're just moist robots. Well, if we're moist robots, Shay, and every thought we have is the result of the laws of physics, which means we don't have free will, we don't have really moral accountability because we're not really making free will moral choices. We're just reacting based on the chemistry of our minds. If that's really the case, then we don't have any moral accountability, and we shouldn't even believe what we believe because we're not reasoning to conclusions, Shay. We are reacting to conclusions. We're not following.
All right. So, like I said, he's strawmanning the position of atheists broadly, and then he's appealing to several different consequences. But what's interesting is what he says is kind of true. It's a half-truth. We are molecules. We are, what do you say, water meat machines or water machine? Yeah, that's what we are. We're more than that. That's the sum of our parts, isn't the whole of it. There's this thing called an emergent property. So you can say, well, what's a computer? The computer is a bunch of circuits, a bunch of chips, and a bunch of wires. It's like, yes, but it's when all that's assembled, it's more than the sum of its parts. Any one bit of it isn't a computer. One chip isn't a computer. It takes more than that to make a computer. And so it takes more than a few molecules to make a man or a woman or whatever, you know? So we're more than the sum of our parts, but yes, we are those things as well. Now, whether or not we have free will, I don't know, or how much free will we actually have, you know, who knows? And this appeal to consequence, but if it's true, then this is true, and then that's true. So that because those things are bad things that I don't want to be true, then it must be false. That's what the appeal to consequence is doing, is playing off of emotions and saying, well, if this is true, then oh no. And of course, he's going into further tangents of, well, you can't even really reason if it's true because you would just be saying what you were programmed to say, and then that's not really reason. But then, kind of a contradiction there, because if it is true, then what you're saying also is what you're programmed to say, and you just think that it's free will when in reality it's not. So you put yourself into this endless impossible box, but that has very little to do with anything else. But good tangent, bro, I guess.
Following the evidence where it leads, we are simply compelled to believe what we believe because physics tells us to do so. And so, ironically, atheists who claim to be champions of reason have made reason impossible by their ideology of materialism. So I think that takes a lot of faith to believe that everything you think is just the result of the laws of physics. And you have no warrant to believe it then if it is just a result of the laws of physics, because again, you're not reasoning freely to that conclusion. You've just reacted to that conclusion without your consent.
Wow. Lots of incoherence at the end there, Frank. Well done. Well done, straw manning and equivocating. And, what is faith? You have to redefine faith at least 3 times, maybe 4. And then this weird tangent of free will, and I don't really see how it would be illogical to consider that whatever the conclusion we make in regards to beliefs that we hold is the result ultimately of, well, I wouldn't say physics. I think that's wrong at some level. I would say biology, but I guess you could say physics because physics enables the universe to be the way that it is, and then that enables the earth to be how it is, and then biology evolves to be able to survive on the earth or whatever. It still doesn't feel quite right, so I'm going to say that's a half truth. Well, no, it doesn't even feel like it's true. It seems like it's just convoluted. Anyways, whatever. If we don't really have free will, then that's the way it is. That's the reality. Whatever reality turns out to be, that's how it is. Could it be that Frank's brain is wired to believe in a God? Could it be that my brain is wired to be able to have once believed in God, but after undergoing certain research, that it wasn't wired to have to hold on to that belief? Whereas Frank's brain might be wired to have to hold on to belief that, let's pretend that I have a time machine and I take Frank in my time machine. We go back in time and we look at the time when Jesus was supposed to be around. We don't find Jesus. We bring experts with us. Jesus isn't there. Like we don't find him. We don't see any of the things that the Bible says happen. We go back further. We don't see the Exodus happen. We finally find Abraham. We find the moment when he creates Judaism, but there's no evidence of him hearing Yahweh. There's no, we go to the moment when Baal and Yahweh, that whole thing happens in the Bible, and we don't find evidence of that. We go even further back. He sees that evolution is true. He sees that the age of the earth is really true. We don't see the Garden of Eden ever. We go all the way back to the very T1 point of the universe. We can't go back any further because there isn't time, and we don't see any evidence of anything. At what point would Frank say, well, of course there's no God? Now, if his brain is wired to continue to believe in God, he would say there's still a God. He would refuse to accept the evidence. He'd say the time machine is a hoax. He would say that we just didn't look in the right place for Jesus. He'd say that God disguised it to test our faith. He'd say anything that he had to protect the belief, because his brain would be wired to do so. And all the time he'd be insisting that no, this is his free will decision, even though it's not. And if his brain is wired that way, then no amount of evidence could convince him otherwise, which is funny because that's what he essentially is claiming of atheists, is that, and well, not in this video, but other videos that are out there, maybe not by Frank, but others that have said that, even if I showed you the evidence, you wouldn't believe it. It's like, what evidence? You don't have evidence. You have arguments, but you don't have evidence. And, and of course, the atheism being the worldview meme and all that. It's not a worldview in and of itself. It's part of a worldview. Materialism, as he rails against at the end, that's a worldview. Materialism is a worldview. And then atheism might indeed be part of materialism. Now, I, as a skeptic / atheist, am not a materialist, nor am I a naturalism naturist, whatever the thing is, because I think that those two positions go too far. They make an absolute statement. All there is the material, or all there is nature. And I'm not willing to say that, because I don't know what all there is. I only know what I know about. So I would have to modify the statements. And because of that, I really wouldn't be able to call myself a naturalist or materialist. Similarly, even though I sometimes say ichthyist also might apply to me, it kind of doesn't, because I don't really agree with ichtheism either. So I've modified what ichtheism is to me. So I don't really call myself ichtheist too much, because it doesn't really apply to me. So it's like, well, I wouldn't really call myself a materialist or a naturalist, because it doesn't really apply to me. So by straw manning me, at any rate, Frank is not talking about me or my ideas or whatever. There's plenty of evidence that, yes, we are made of molecules. In fact, everything is made of molecules, and those molecules are made up of atoms and subatomic particles and quarks and neurons and yada, 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 right? And how far down that rabbit hole goes, who knows? That's the reality of it. That's what we are. But we are more than the sum of our parts. And that's what he leaves out. And he leaves that out deliberately, because it straw mans our position. It makes it look weaker than it is. We, as a human, are an emergent property. The brain is a complex structure that produces this thing that we call the mind. And the mind is an emergent property that is more than the sum of its parts. And how that works and why it works, that's for neurologists to figure out and beyond my scope. I'll leave it in their hands. Similarly, I'm fine with if they discover we don't have free will. Okay, whatever. And in many ways, you don't. You don't have the ability to choose to fly into the air. because your body is incapable of doing that without, some sort of mechanism attached to you. You can't just jump and fly in the air like Superman. You're gonna fall with style at best. So you're already limited in that regard. Another thing, and of course with free will, even though it's a huge tangent from, if atheists have faith or not, and of course in order to make that statement you have to equivocate faith and at least 3, 4, 5 times, whatever, and it's incoherent. I don't have faith at all. Last time I did a video on this was I don't have enough faith to be Frank Turek. So yeah, I still don't. But free will, okay, so here's your choice. I'm going to offer you 2 plates, and you must eat what is on the plate. That is the rule. This is a thought experiment. Maybe we do it in real life if you really want. And on one plate is a banana, and on the other plate is a pile of poop. Now, you supposedly have free will. So that means you could choose to eat the poop. But I guarantee that nobody will do that. Not a single person will do that without an incentive. If I say I'm going to pay you money to eat the poop, then you might. Or if I threaten you that if you don't eat the poop, something bad will happen, you might do it then. But without that, you're really not going to make that choice. You're going to choose to eat the banana. Maybe you hate bananas. Maybe you might even be allergic to the bananas. But given the choice between bananas and poop, everyone's going to choose bananas. Nobody is going to choose the poop. So do you really have free choice? Do you really have free will? And you're like, well, but I could eat it. Yeah, but you're not gonna. So you don't have free will. So Frank, if you believe you have free will, Frank Turek, not that he's watching this video, but I would challenge Frank that if he believes he has free will, then eat a plate of shit on camera. And that will prove you have free will to me. And because we have free will, then that will then somehow prove God, I guess, and your particular God on top of that. So if Frank Turek eats a plate of shit on camera, I will admit that Jesus is God and that there is a real God. So I'm waiting for Frank to do that. Now I've put a good reason for him to eat a pile of shit on camera is my immortal soul. Heck, I'll toss in some other people too. I'll just volunteer everyone that watches my videos that they too will also admit that there's a God if Frank eats a pile of shit on camera. Now, who thinks that Frank is going to eat a pile of shit on camera to convert us atheists? Anyone? Does anyone think even for a moment that he's going to do that? No. And if he did do something, I guarantee that it would be a pile of ice cream that looks like poop. It wouldn't actually be poop. It would be something that looks like poop that he'd be eating. It wouldn't actually be real feces. He wouldn't do that. It wouldn't be done. He's not going to do it. And yes, I'm going to require that they absolutely prove that it's pile of poo before he eats it. Yeah, it's a condition, but he's still not going to do it. So, do you have free will in that case? No, you don't. Not really. So, already, again, you have limited free will at best. Maybe it's not an all or nothing thing. Maybe for some things we have free will and others we don't. I don't know. But it's just a huge tangent. As far as atheists having faith, no matter how you equivocate it, I just have to keep asking, is faith good or bad? If it's bad, then you don't want it. If it's good, then you want it, right? And if you equivocate it, it doesn't seem to matter because all Frank is relying on is simply asserting that whatever it is, we don't have the evidence that we're right, which is weird because all the atheists is essentially saying is they don't believe in God. Now some say there is no God, And that's kind of a different category, perhaps. But not all atheists are materialists or naturalists. That's what he seems to be going after. Why not just go after that worldview? Well, then you have a different problem, because the worldview of naturalism and materialism is essentially that that's all there is. And it's like, well, you observe and you go, well, that's all that I observe. Maybe you could make that complaint and say, well, you haven't observed everything, so you can't say it's everything. You could say it's only what you've observed. And it's like, okay, fair enough. You're right. That's a good complaint to make, Frank. But he didn't do that. I did that. I made that complaint. So I did a better job complaining about that. That's an actual worldview than Frank did. And I wouldn't say that to be a materialist or naturalist requires faith at all. Not at all. I would ask the person that has that viewpoint what they make of the idea that we don't in fact know about everything, and that is it fair to extrapolate outward in that way, and is that reasonable? I would ask them questions to understand their point of view. I might not agree with their point of view, but at least I would understand it. But Frank's not interested in doing that. All right. Yeah, rodents, of course. I have non-humans in my chat. They would eat poop, so of course my my thought experiment doesn't apply to them. Uh, oh yeah, and of course the Bible's definition of faith is completely different than Frank's definition of faith, and so if you actually care about theology, which we probably don't, but if you did, and you were a Christian, and you were listening to this video, Frank Turek is a false prophet. In order to be a decent prophet, in order to be a pastor, minister, whatever, you must cite the Bible to back up your claims. But he didn't do that. And why? Because the Bible does say what faith is, and is hope in the things that you don't see, not having faith in things that you have evidence for. It doesn't say anything like that. Let's just pull it up so that I will quote it verbatim here. And then we'll be done with this, I guess.
Without faith, it's impossible.
Yeah. Okay. No. All right. Now, faith is, there's Hebrews 11:1. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So, that, I don't know how you have evidence for things that you don't see, but it's hope and not seen. So that's not evidence, even though that word is here. Of course, we'd have to go to the original language and see what that says, yada, yada, yada. But regardless, that's what, here's maybe a bit better one. Faith is the assurance, the confirmation of things hoped for, divinely guaranteed, and the evidence of things not seen, the conviction of their reality. Faith comprehends as fact what cannot be experienced by the physical senses. There you go. Hey, look, this one's really good. This one outlines that faith is not having evidence. Now, of course, maybe you don't like the AMP. What is AMP? The Amplified Bible. Hey, I didn't ask you to talk while I'm doing a thing in the background. All right, now we're gonna watch God's Not Dead 4, and it's your fault. All right, maybe later we'll do that. I'm gonna make my brother watch the rest of it and finish my stupid review of that, because I said I was gonna do it. I'm still not doing it. I have to do it. Anyways. And I've got a door knock. So I think that will be the end of this video. I'll see you next. Well, maybe I'll put it on pause. See who's there. Hold on. Hold on a moment.
have anything. No. I don't
Okay.
have any on me. Sorry.
What do people do? Okay. Randomly, every now and then, we get people come to our door and like, "Do you have money?" And it's like, "What? What?" It's a weird neighborhood. I don't know what to say. All right, I'm not done yet. Yeah, that was weird. I'm getting interrupted all over the place. Oxfordshire man, why don't you open this up so people like me can come in? Link so I can come in. Not spoke for a while. Tell you what, Oxford man, I'll start a new stream just for you, okay? And end this one because I'm done. You know, this was Frank's video, so I'm done with this, and I'll start a new one, and I'll call it Oxford Man Stream. So yeah, all right, that's it for this video. I guess I ended in a weird way. You know the thing. Comment stuff, whatever, blah. Lobsters.